This is One Broke Gamer Girl, and this is my review of King Oddball for the PlayStation 4. I've had my eye on this game for a long time now, but it was one of those games that I could never justify the purchase price, so I always skipped buying it, even when it was on sale. It just so happens that about a month ago, this was a free PlayStation Plus game, which made it the perfect opportunity for me to finally download this game and check it out. After a month of playing, I was finally able to complete it, so that means that it's time for a review. King Oddball is about this king who just happens to be a ball and happens to appear in the sky one day with the sole purpose of taking over the world. He's kind of like Brain from Pinky and the Brain. Anyone remember that? No? Just me? Moving on then. In order to do this, he'll have to throw rocks at various different tanks and troops on the ground to defeat them in this Angry Birds type of game. Will King Oddball succeed and take over the world? If you know what you're doing, he will, and don't get so frustrated that you break your controller. Not to worry though, if you can't get through it, there are a bunch of different levels to play and a whole secret world. I thought this game was okay. It wasn't the best game to come from 10 Tons. It also wasn't the worst game, so that has to count for something. After a while, the game starts to get a little repetitive as each level blends into the one before it, and it just seems like this never-ending game. Sometimes that's not a bad thing, and sometimes it's a really bad thing. In this case, it kind of falls in the middle. When you're on a winning streak, you want to keep playing, but when you're on this losing streak and you've tried to beat one level over 20 times in a row and have failed, you want to crush your controller into a million little pieces. The extra levels where you have to do specific things with a specific number of rocks was fun and interesting, and the secret world was just the basic world reversed, so it was like playing the whole game over again after you just beat it. This got to be a little more frustrating and ended up leaving a bad taste in my mouth once I finally beat the game. The playability of this game was interesting. While everything worked as it should and there were no game-breaking bugs or glitches to report of, there was no way to actually judge how you were going to throw a rock. The thing is, King Oddball is just a big rock in the sky, so he has to use his tongue to pick up rocks and fling them at the troops. Well, I wasn't able to find a way to adjust his tongue, and each time he started a level, the amount of tongue that was sticking out was different. Sometimes it was too much, and it would mess up the whole level, and sometimes it was too little, and that would mess up the whole level as well. There was never this balance, and it felt like you weren't in control a lot of the time. You were just pressing X when you thought that maybe you had a chance of hitting something. This was probably the most frustrating part of this game, and it made it just a little bit less enjoyable. I felt that the graphics for this game were simple, but not in a good way. The background graphics were supposed to be this artsy-looking painting type thing, but it just made the game look pixelated and blurry, while the main graphics were just weird-looking. The tanks and troops had some detail to them as well as King Oddball, but the obstacles that were used throughout the game really didn't bring that much in the graphics department. There were a total of 16 trophies for this game. No platinum, but after playing this game you will certainly think that you deserve a platinum, after beating it too. Not because it's difficult, but because of the amount of time that it takes to actually play the game. None of the trophies are hard, and they're actually pretty easy to get. It's just the time it takes to get them that will get you. If you're the dedicated trophy hunter type, you'll try your hardest to get them, and if you're not much of a trophy hunter, you'll probably play the game once before putting it away. While there is no multiplayer for this game, this is a great couch co-op game because when you get frustrated because you can't beat a level, you can just hand the controller off to your unsuspecting victim. I mean your friend, and let them give it a go. So while this wasn't meant to be a multiplayer or a co-op game, you can certainly make it into one and share the burden of getting all those trophies and beating all of the levels with someone who is willing to sit with you and play. Overall, I give this game a 2.5 out of 5. Here's what's great about the game. It's a different take on Angry Birds and kind of opens the door to the other 10 Tons games that are similar, like Tennis in the Face and Baseball Riot. Not to mention there are a bunch of different levels to complete and hours upon hours of game time with this game, so you'll have a lot to do. Here's what's not so great about this game. There are a lot of things to do with this game, and it quickly becomes too tedious and boring because after a while the levels just blend together, even if they offer a challenge. Also, beating some of the levels are just pure luck, no matter how good you are at this game, and that doesn't really work all that well. Not to mention the graphics aren't really that impressive and could use some work. If you pick this game up for free thanks to PlayStation Plus, I would say to give it a try because you have nothing to lose but your sanity. If you missed this one, then I would say skip it because my first impression of this game was correct, and it's really not worth the $4.99 that the game is currently selling for.